All right, let's get the show started. Welcome to the Hellion Rebellion Rock and Roll Association, brought to you by the one and only Holly Geist. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight, and before we get started, we always do some moments of silence for the rock stars we live vicariously through that have passed within the last week, and apparently they do come in threes. The first one goes out to Mr. Algie Ward. He was the bass player for Australia's The Saints. He would go on to play bass for The Damned, which is the lineup I'm most familiar with. And then he would go on to create new wave of British heavy metal sensation, a band called Tank, which after all these years, I cannot believe Tank was not bigger than they really were. They were huge in England, but they didn't come across to the United States the way that Maiden and Priest sort of did. Tank was an absolutely juggernaut of a of a band. Secondly, let's stay with bass players and talk about a man who was playing with one of the most influential progressive rock groups of the 1980s, the Smiths. Andy Rourke has passed from us this week. With the exception of probably the lyrical content of the Smiths, I've always found that the bass lines to be the most intriguing aspect of their music. Uh, I strongly suggest that you check out a YouTuber named Embryonic Robot who has done a series of ranking Smith songs, and I've discovered and rediscovered music from the Smiths and things that I didn't know about and things that I forgot I loved. And lest we forget, Andy Rourke also played bass for Sinead O'Connor. And thirdly, I just found out about this 5 hours ago. The irreplaceable, one of the three queens of rock and roll, the legendary Tina Turner, has passed at the age of 83. What can you say? I mean, Tina Turner is an absolute legend, and she is going to be greatly, greatly missed. So let's go ahead and give up some moments of silence for these three individuals. Okay. May Algie Ward, Andy Rourke, and Miss Tina Turner find the accommodations luxurious and snug in the heavenly cosmos beyond the Thunderdome. So tonight I'm going to talk about a band that one of my oldest subscribers, I want to say he's subscriber number 2, subscriber number 3. He gave me a record of 2 months ago, but I was without my vinyl for a while. But the mysterious man known as Clyde sent me this record, Pentagram, and he wanted me to talk about this and play a song off of it. So I know it's been long in coming, Mr. Clyde, but here we go. Pentagram. And thanks a lot for the record. I really do appreciate it. I've always really liked this band. So Pentagram is from Alexandria, Virginia. And I'm going to go ahead and be like Sherlock Holmes and put two and two together. I think Alexandria, Virginia is a suburb of Washington, D.C. Because my entire life I always had heard that Pentagram was from Washington, D.C. See how I did that? See how I just figured stuff out without actually looking it up? Pentagram has been around since 1972, 73. Uh, they would put out tons and tons of singles in the 70s. And they would not release their first record until 1985, which is this record. The original record is self-titled. It's just Pentagram. But the copy I have is on Peaceville Records, and it's called Relentless. So if you have an original copy of this without the Relentless at the bottom, it's probably worth a little bit of money. Um, I don't know why they decided to name their first record with the reissues, but maybe it was to separate the reissues from the originals. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, Pentagram is a band who has been plagued with all kinds of misfortune. They, I mean, missed opportunities, setbacks, constant lineup changes, and of course, the escalating usage of drugs and alcohol. I saw a documentary on a man goes by the name of Bobby Liebling, who's been the only person in Pentagram since its inception. Uh, Bobby Liebling had a lot of drug problems, and was the documentary that is called "The Last Days." Um, so Mr. Liebling, throughout the 70s and 80s, he would develop this drug habit. By the 90s, he had become a recluse to the point of sitting around his house or apartment. I mean, looking for speed and crack cocaine in the cushions of his couch. Um, and he would develop schizophrenic uh, tendencies and beliefs. He thought there were insects crawling all over him. He thought that these insects were laying eggs into his body. It's a fascinating documentary on this individual. He there in the documentary there was this girl who was a super fan. She was always in contact with him, and towards the end of the documentary, they meet, they hook up, and supposedly he's kind of cleaned up his act and has really just pushed this band as far as it could go, probably since 2005, 2010, somewhere like that. But yeah, Pentagram's had a lot of ups and downs in the last 40 years. A good example that's in the documentary is, I guess this would have been the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. Kiss was looking for a band to open up for them, and they wanted a band that could compete with the new wave of British heavy metal. And but the United States really didn't do that. The United States and England had different aesthetic different aesthetics when it came to hard rock and heavy metal. You wouldn't see the United States even do new wave of British heavy metal until the speed metal guys and the thrasher guys would be the first guys who really started doing that. The exceptions being probably Manowar and Armored Saint, and those guys even came later than the European guys. But the one thing the United States did do was big, chunky, hard rock, doomy metal, which of course was influenced by Black Sabbath. But in the United States, it was also influenced by bands like Blue Cheer, Grand Funk Railroad, Mountain. So bands like Pentagram did exist. So Gene and Paul from Kiss decide that they're going to go over to Bobby Liebling's house to hear this band rehearse and decide if they want Pentagram to open up for them. So I don't know if Kiss is on top of the world, but they're definitely big enough where they're headlining by this time. And two of the guys from Pentagram don't even show up to rehearsal. Bobby Liebling and some other guy, again, there's all kinds of different people in this band constantly, were too messed up to even play their instruments. So, of course, Gene and Paul just turned their back and walked away. I mean, you talk about a missed opportunity. I mean, my heart goes out to Pentagram when I hear that story. I'm just like, God, you couldn't get it together for one day to put on a show. Yeah, if you know Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, they don't put up with that kind of thing. It's one thing to be a functioning alcoholic like Ace Frehley, but it's another thing to just not be able to do everyday normal things in life. They don't do it. So Pentagram again missed a great opportunity. Who knows? They might have put out a bunch of full length records and gotten a record deal in the 70s had they been opening up for Kiss. But that's the history. That's the history of Pentagram. Pentagram is definitely part of what's called the Big Four of Doom. Now that every genre of music has to have the Big Four, the Big Four of Doom would be Pentagram, it would be Saint Vitus, Candlemass, and Chicago's Trouble. Would be the Big Four of Doom. So they are a highly influential band. They've been using that satanic imagery probably longer than Venom was. Venom was a shock to the system and something to be reckoned with, but Pentagram was probably using this longer than they were. So I'm sick of hearing my voice. Let's go ahead and listen to a song. And I think I'm going to play what I consider their theme song or signature song, Sign of the Wolf, Pentagram. So let's go ahead and spin this thing. And bear with me while I try to find the track. I can't ever do that with records.
love from above, but it's happening to me. Black cloud hangs and it just won't leave, though he wants to believe it's a pentagram. Hard to conceive and he tries to conceive, though his destiny dream it's a pentagram. Now don't know how, but it's happening to me. Got the love from above, but it's happening to me. I can't turn back now. Stories unfold, but they've all been told when he sold his soul to the pentagram. And to end his life, though the silver is old, he will reach his goal by the pentagram. And now don't know how, but it's happening to me. Got the love from above, but it's happening to me. One more time. Now don't know how, but it's happening to me. Got the love from above, but it's happening to me. It's alright. I can't turn back now. It's a sign of the wolf.
Wow, it's a little bit shorter than I thought. Anyway, I couldn't get my fiery pentagram going, man. It's like those old heavy metal concerts that just didn't work right with the I don't know, like Spinal Tap and the really tiny Stonehenge or something. It's really anticlimactic, but hey kids, don't play with fire. You'll get burned. So there you go. Pentagram. Sign of the Wolf by the band Pentagram. I hope you liked it. I would like to thank once again the mysterious subscriber of mine known as Clyde for sending me this. It's such a great record. One of these days I'm going to have to find you and we're going to have to do a show together. You and I seem to share a lot of the same interests. So I hope you liked it. And I will see you next time. Peace.